Guys, so Ruben reached out to me recently on Twitter, and he mentioned a past video I made called My Story. And in that video, I kind of went over some of the events in my life where I had to be audacious. I had to have audacity, the willingness to make bold moves, to take risks. And he said, well, what if you know what you're supposed to do, but you're too lazy to do it? All right, he asked me to talk about this. So I just wanted to kind of go over this subject and kind of incorporate the book that I'm reading now. If you guys are, paying attention, we started this week on Hannibal and Me, and it is all about Hannibal Lecter, the hero of Carthage, leading and his army of 100,000 men over the Alps with like 28 elephants. These guys get hypothermia. By the time they make it to Italy, he loses half his army. And I mean, this dude's one goal in life, instilled in him by his father, was to conquer Rome. He ended up fighting, I forgot what it was, like he killed 70,000 Romans in one day. And this wasn't just, there was no guns or anything. This is slaughter, bow and arrow, clubs, slingshots. So he knew what he had to do. Hannibal was a goal-oriented man. He didn't wander in life. Now, in the book, it talks about two different types of people: the wanderers and then the goal setters. And you've probably met a lot of goal setters in your life, and or maybe not, a lot of wanderers too. There's a both, but which one's better? Which one's the right way? Well, with the goal setters, you see people like doctors. They have they know exactly what they want to do, right? From a very young age, their parents were telling them, you're going to become a doctor. So they go to school and they study medical school and they do everything they need to be a doctor, and that is their purpose. That is their goal, all right? And there's a lot of different career paths like this, but for the most part, a lot of us are wandering, and a lot of us are scared to wander. Now, back to the goal setters. When you have that vision, when you have that dream, it is good to have focus, but you can also miss out on a lot of things. You can also be so attuned that you block out everything else, any other opportunities that lies ahead. One of the things it says in this book is that the person that is looking to become something has a direct shot, right? You say you're going to become a doctor. There's only a few really big peak experiences in your life. There's only a few Alps that you can cross, mountain ranges, and then everything from there is down. There's only that pinnacle once or twice in your life. If we look back at Pablo Picasso, in his life, 1/4 of the artwork in his 20s is worth more than the rest of everything that he created. He created a painting at around, I think it was 26, and it was about 5 Barcelona horse, and this revolutionized the art world, guys. And he only later, everything else in between was not as good. It was only later, 30 something years later, where he created this one painting, Guarana, I believe it was, depicting the city blown to smithereens. It's like got an ox head over here, a bunch of weird stuff. Anyways, fascinating. But then we look at wanderers like the 33rd president, Harry Truman. And Harry Truman had no idea that he was going to be the president one day. No idea. He was wandering throughout life. He bought a zinc mine that totally failed, wasn't worth anything, had to sell it. Then he got out, wandered again, started a business. He experimented with a business that totally failed. And then one of his friends took him in and as his mentor. He got a mentor, and eventually he went to the Senate. The president died. The only reason that he got to this position is because 3 other people turned it down. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. So he was like, okay, he was jumping on the opportunities. All right, he was a wanderer. But the cool thing about wandering and testing and experimenting is that you stumble upon things that pique your interest. You stumble upon little victories throughout your life. It's not just climbing that mountain peak and then this great downfall. There's a depression that comes with quick success. If you think about people that win the lottery, where you don't, how can you go any higher than that without actually working to get there? Great success breeds failure, because it's, for many of us, when we experience success, it's like, how do we reach that again? How do we do it again? But the wonder, when you don't know exactly what you're doing, but when you're experimenting, when you're trying new things, you stumble across a lot of things that interest you. So, Ruben, you know the right thing to do. Maybe when you said right thing to do, you just meant like you should be working out, or you should be eating better, or you should be taking this class. I don't know. But I think for all of us, it would be alongside of the goals that you currently have, that if we just were to experiment more, to take more risk, to just start. If you could do 100 experiments this year, imagine if, like, you set up a Twitter, or you tried out a YouTube channel, or you joined a new club, or you set a goal to read 20 books in 6 months, whatever, or you started a new diet. All these experiments would lead you to something and give you a greater knowledge of the world than you ever have before. And it just took that first step. I live my life on this philosophy from a book of The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Asher. I think I butchered that, but it breaks it down to one simple phrase. What is the one thing that you could do every single day that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? And it gives a analogy of a domino, flicking a domino over and then the rest fall. And it starts with that single flick. And so many of us think of where we want to be, what it's going to take. We're not sure where we're going, but we know we want to be rich. We know we want to be famous. We know we want to help a lot of people. Whatever drives you. But none of us bring it back to the single flick, the single step. Starting is the most hard part. It is the hardest part of the journey, taking that first step, because we don't know where it's going to go. But experiment. You guys, again, back to what Felix Dennis said in the book How to Get Rich. You're young, you have stamina. I envy you more than any rich person in the world because you're young. He said he would trade his millions just to be young again, and he would get the better deal. To be young and have stamina means that you can experiment, means that you can fail, means that you can wander for a while and try new things and not know exactly where you're going. In the book by Seth Godin, Poke the Box, he goes on to say that you never know what's going to happen. The whole book is about poking that box. The puzzle pieces come together when you poke. You find out what you're dealing with. So it takes an open mind. It takes a willingness to explore. And it takes a willingness to break the status quo. Because in a lot of our lives, we live in a status quo. Our routines, our habits, our desires, our friends, our family. Who do we hang out with every single weekend? What do we do? Our routine going to work, when we go to sleep. But to experiment, it takes, okay, maybe I'm not going to go hang out on Saturday night and Sunday. I'm going to use that as my time for growth. I'm going to use my days off as a time to read, as a time to experiment with building a website. That is what I believe to be the wanderer's path. Joseph Campbell, the famous mythology writer, marked out what would become one of the most famous ways of writing for every fiction story, and you see it everywhere. It's called the hero's journey, and we've talked about that here. And the hero's journey really follows closely to what I think the wanderer is in life. It is a young man, young woman that sets out. I'm not sure how it exactly goes. I look it up, guys. It's fascinating. But sets out, finds a mentor, goes on a journey for a couple of years, uncertain just how we go out into the world. Maybe you're living alone for the first time. You have separated from your parents. Discovers the world, learns skills, comes back, fights a dragon, saves the princess, and then returns home with the elixir. The hero's journey is so cool because it's sort of what every wanderer goes through. We go through a time of our life where we have to divorce from our parents, from the stability in our lives, and experiment. And when we do that, there's growth. We set out on our own journey. Guys, and along your journey, it helps when you develop respect for your body, when you can start working out and build a healthy body, when you learn about the foods that aid you on this quest, when you have a tribe that is near you, guiding you along, pushing you along, when you learn stuff like meditation, how to control your mind. You have power over your mind, right? Not everything else that's going on, and that is power. And you practice all this self-discipline, this self-development. And on your hero's journey, along with all these experiments, you never know where you'll end up. You will have many times in your life where you have great success. And it's not just this one success here and there. It's not just becoming a doctor or an astronaut, all admirable, but not for everyone. I think a lot of us are wanderers. A lot of us are on the hero's journey and we're looking. So keep searching, experimenting, trying new things. Find that. Listen to that voice in your head that calls you to something. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Leave me a comment down below. Please subscribe. I'll see you soon.